Right now, as you're watching this video, someone somewhere on this planet is drinking a Coca-Cola. Actually, scratch that. About 10,000 Coca-Cola products are consumed every single second. Not per minute. Not per hour. Per second. That's 1.9 billion servings a day. Every single day. Rain or shine, war or peace, pandemic or no pandemic. Coke is sold in every country on Earth. Every single one. There are only two nations that have ever been off-limits to Coca-Cola, Cuba and North Korea. And even that is changing. Think about that for a second. Coca-Cola has penetrated markets that the United States government, the United Nations, and decades of foreign policy could not. This is not a drink. This is a global empire. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how it was built, and why you were never supposed to know the full story. The year is 1886. Atlanta, Georgia. A man named John Pemberton, a Confederate Army veteran, a pharmacist, and a morphine addict, is sitting in his backyard, stirring a pot of syrup over a fire. He is not trying to create a refreshing beverage. He is trying to cure his morphine addiction. Pemberton had been injured in the Civil War and got hooked on morphine like thousands of other veterans. So he did what any self-respecting pharmacist of the 1880s would do. He started experimenting with cocaine. His first product was called Pemberton's French wine Coca. It was essentially wine mixed with cocaine, and it was marketed as a brain tonic. It was flying off the shelves. Then Atlanta went dry. Prohibition laws banned alcohol. So Pemberton had to remove the wine from the formula. He replaced it with carbonated water. He called the new drink Coca-Cola, named after two of its ingredients, coca leaves, yes, the cocaine plant, and cola nuts. His bookkeeper came up with the now famous logo. He mixed the syrup in a three-legged brass pot in his backyard. And he sold the first glass at a local pharmacy for 5 cents. In its first year, Coca-Cola sold an average of 9 servings per day. 9. Pemberton never got to see what it became. He died broke just 2 years later, having sold off most of his stake in the company to pay his debts. He sold the rights to Coca-Cola for $2,300. The man who bought it, Asa Griggs Candler, would turn it into a national phenomenon. And he did it with one of the oldest tricks in the marketing playbook, the free sample hustle. Candler had no interest in the medicinal angle. He wanted to sell a drink. And to do that, he had to get people addicted, not to cocaine, but to the taste. So he printed coupons. Millions of them. Free glass of Coca-Cola. No strings attached. He mailed them to pharmacies, doctors, and random households across the country. Between 1886 and 1913, Candler gave away over 8.5 million free glasses of Coke. He spent more on marketing than on actual production. It worked. By 1895, Candler could confidently say that Coca-Cola was sold and drunk in every state and territory of the United States. But here's the thing, none of this explains how Coke conquered the world. For that, we need to talk about a deal so bad, it accidentally built a global empire. Two lawyers from Chattanooga, Tennessee, Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead, walk into Asa Candler's office with an idea. They want to buy the rights to bottle Coca-Cola and sell it in bottles across America. Candler thinks this is a ridiculous idea. Coke is a fountain drink. It's sold at soda fountains in pharmacies. Why would anyone want it in a bottle? So he sells them the bottling rights. For the entire United States. For $1. And with one condition. The price of the syrup he sold to them would be fixed. Forever. Permanently. In perpetuity. Candler thought he was getting the better end of the deal. He'd collect money for the syrup and let these two fools handle the messy business of bottling. He was catastrophically wrong. Thomas and Whitehead immediately started selling sub-franchises to local bottlers across the country. They built an army of independent bottlers who were fiercely loyal because they owned their territories. Within a decade, there were over 400 Coca-Cola bottling plants across America. The drink was everywhere. And Candler could do nothing about it, because the contract was locked. That bottling network, built on what Candler thought was a bad deal for the other guys, became the backbone of Coca-Cola's global distribution for the next 100 years. Every time you see a Coke in a remote town, in a gas station in the middle of nowhere, in a market in sub-Saharan Africa, That is the legacy of that $1 deal. But even the best distribution network in America doesn't explain how Coke became a global product. For that, you need a war. When World War II started, the US government rationed sugar. Sugar was a wartime resource. Candy companies, bakeries, soda companies, everyone had limits. Everyone except Coca-Cola. Robert Woodruff, the president of Coca-Cola at the time, made a bold, almost audacious declaration. Every man in uniform should be able to get a Coke for 5 cents wherever he is and whatever it costs the company. And then he went to Washington and lobbied the US government to classify Coca-Cola as an essential wartime product. It worked. The government exempted Coca-Cola from sugar rationing. While every other soda company was scrambling for ingredients, Coke had unlimited sugar access, as long as it was going to the troops. Then it got even bigger. Eisenhower himself, the Supreme Allied Commander, sent a telegram requesting 10 Coca-Cola bottling plants be shipped to North Africa along with technicians to operate them. The US government paid for it. All of it. Transportation, construction, equipment, everything. By the end of the war, Coca-Cola had set up 64 bottling plants in war zones across Europe, Africa, the Pacific, and Asia. All government funded. All technically serving the troops. But here's what nobody talks about. When the war ended, those plants didn't disappear. They stayed. And they became the foundation of Coke's post-war international expansion. Germany, Italy, France, Japan, the Philippines, countries that had Coke bottling plants built during wartime suddenly had local Coke industries after the war. The US military had essentially funded Coca-Cola's global infrastructure. The American taxpayer had unknowingly paid to conquer the world for a private beverage company. But it wasn't just the plants. It was what the drink represented. To soldiers thousands of miles from home, a cold Coke was a taste of America. It was comfort, familiarity, normalcy in the middle of hell. And for locals in occupied and liberated countries who were given Cokes by American soldiers, it was a taste of the victor, of modernity, of whatever America represented. By the time the war ended in 1945, millions of people around the world had tasted Coca-Cola for the first time. They'd associated it with Allied victory, with American optimism, with hope. Coke didn't just survive the war. It used the war to colonize the global market in a way that no amount of traditional marketing could ever have achieved. After World War II, a new war started. Not with guns and bombs, but with ideas. The Cold War. America versus the Soviet Union. Capitalism versus communism. And Coca-Cola was right in the middle of it. The Soviet Union hated Coca-Cola. They saw it as the symbol of American capitalism, a product designed to make you want things, to make you a consumer, to hook you into the Western system. They were right. But they couldn't stop it. In 1959, at the American National Exhibition in Moscow, a cultural exchange fair, Vice President Richard Nixon gave Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev a Pepsi. The photo went around the world. Khrushchev drinking an American soft drink. It was a propaganda coup for the West. Coca-Cola watched this and said, "We want in." Coke spent years negotiating with Soviet bloc countries, finding loopholes, working with sympathetic politicians. In 1966, Yugoslavia became the first communist country to bottle Coca-Cola. The Iron Curtain was cracking. One Coke at a time. Then came 1971. The Vietnam War is raging. America is deeply divided. And Coca-Cola runs one of the most famous ads in history. Young people from around the world, standing on a hilltop in Italy, singing together, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke." It was not just an ad. It was a geopolitical statement. It said, Coca-Cola is not American. It's global. It belongs to everyone. It is the drink of peace, of harmony, of human connection. They had received over 100,000 letters from viewers. Radio stations played the jingle as a standalone song. Coke had weaponized emotion. They'd turned a sugar water brand into an ideology. And behind all this success, a crisis was brewing that would almost destroy everything. By the 1980s, Pepsi was winning. The Pepsi Challenge, those blind taste tests where people consistently preferred Pepsi, was a marketing nightmare for Coke. Pepsi's market share was rising. Coke was losing ground for the first time in decades. So in 1985, Coke did the unthinkable. They changed the formula. New Coke, a sweeter taste, designed to beat Pepsi in blind tests. The backlash was instant, total, and historically catastrophic. People stockpiled the old Coke. There were protests. Senators gave speeches about it. One man in Seattle formed the Society for the Preservation of the Real Thing. The company received 400,000 complaint letters and calls. 79 days later, Coke brought the original formula back. They called it Coca-Cola Classic. And something strange happened. Sales exploded. Brand loyalty had never been stronger. People who hadn't thought about Coke in years were suddenly passionate defenders of it. Some marketing historians believe New Coke was a deliberate ploy to reignite public love for the brand. Coke denies this to this day. Whether it was a genius plan or a lucky disaster, it worked. Coke entered the 1990s more dominant than ever. Here's something most people don't know about Coca-Cola's business model. The Coca-Cola Company does not bottle drinks. They make syrup and sell it to independent bottlers around the world. This means their actual business is business to business. They are a B2B company that happens to have one of the most recognizable consumer brands on the planet. The bottlers take the syrup, add water and carbonation, bottle it, and handle distribution. Coke just collects a fee on every unit of syrup sold. Globally. Always. It's one of the most elegant business models ever devised. Low overhead. Asset light. Infinitely scalable. When most people think of Coca-Cola, they think of the red can. But the Coca-Cola Company owns over 500 brands. Dasani Water. Vitamin Water. Minute Maid. Innocent Drinks. Costa Coffee. Fairlife Milk. Powerade. Honest Tea. Whatever you're drinking, there's a decent chance Coca-Cola gets a cut of it. They realized long ago that the future wasn't just cola. So they quietly bought their way into almost every beverage category on Earth. Walk into any supermarket, anywhere in the world. Look at the drinks aisle. Coke doesn't just compete for shelf space. In many countries, they own the refrigerators. Literally. Coca-Cola supplies stores with branded refrigerators for free, with one condition: only Coke products can be stored in them. In developing markets, this is a massive advantage. A small shop in Nigeria or Indonesia might not be able to afford a fridge. Coke provides one, and locks out every competitor in the process. That's not a beverage company. That's infrastructure. Coca-Cola is worth over $250 billion today. It is the most recognized brand on Earth. There are remote villages in Ethiopia and Indonesia where people don't know the name of the American president, but they know the red and white label. Coca-Cola spends over $4 billion on marketing every single year. That's more than the annual GDP of some countries. And what are they marketing? Not a drink. They are marketing happiness, togetherness, nostalgia, the idea that life is better when you crack open a Coke. You were never buying a beverage. You were buying a feeling that a roomful of marketers engineered specifically to make you reach for your wallet. And the fact that it tastes good, that's almost beside the point. That's how Coca-Cola conquered the world. If this video hit different, share it. Someone in your circle needs to see this. I'll see you in the next one.